Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne broadcasting live on this Thursday, going into week 9 of the college football season, broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. On the Ridge, the city with a smile. They are open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Service department open on Saturdays. Keep this in mind, 7 a.m. to 12:30. Austin Futrell and the guys are in there. Got a great crew, 25 service bays. They're committed to customer service, customer loyalty. You will love working with these people over here. Rusty Howard, Greg Smith, man, I'm telling you, Justin Wynn, the general manager, Razorbacks, RFL, Razorbacks for life. Got a great one lined up for you today, as we are every Monday through Saturday, again, 8 to 10 a.m. Central. If you miss us live, go to 680thefan.com, the podcast park over there in Atlanta, located in the Battery, right there, the flagship of the Atlanta Braves. College football, Southern Sports Today with Chuck Oliver, expecting over 4.3 million visitors to the site this year. If you also live in Central Alabama, Radio Alabama Group, Kicks 96.3 out there on the 750 miles of beautiful shoreline at Lake Martin. Kicks 96.3 country. Great folks down there, Lee Perryman, Radio Alabama Group. Thanks so much for listening. And, of course, listen live always, www.sidelines.live. Give us a follow on Twitter. We'll follow you at sidelines_live. And I will say this, man. We got the ECS House Industries Razorback Report. Our good friend Chad House, located over in the heart of the Delta, Cherry Valley, and Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net. Also have a special guest who's going to run by. I still have nightmares. 20 years ago, Dudley and Fred Talley, Arkansas.
My brother.
And Fred, I still, last night I didn't sleep well. I started just remembering that game. I couldn't sleep. But I'm telling you what, I'm glad having everybody join us. Second segment, we'll head down to Tuscaloosa. Gary Harris, Tide 100.9 WVUA TV 23. Top of the second hour, Damian Mitchell will join us. Jocks 94.5 FM in Birmingham. We'll check in what's going on down there. And hopefully, I know Lauren Smith, the patriarch of Georgia and Southern football, long 50 years now on the Georgia Football Network. What do you got, Lauren? Quickly. He'll join us. He's going to do a book signing. This man lives the life of Robin Leach, the lifestyles of the rich and famous. He's going, guys, to Amelia Island for a book signing, and then he'll head over with everybody on Saturday to Jacksonville for Florida and Georgia. Dudley, let's get to some talk on the Razorbacks, and then Fred Talley's going to join us. And just always love having you on. And yesterday I reached out to you, and I want to give you thank you so much, because I've had more requests, people going, where is Fred Talley now? And I just asked you, and next thing you know, I'm on the phone with Fred, and couldn't be nicer. And my wife goes, I love guests like Fred Talley and Dudley, because they're in there early in the green room. They're ready to go. And my phone's been lighting up with people going, Fred Talley. I mean, it's kind of an iconic game. It's nightmare for Auburn, but Arkansas, and the way that was the most yards ever given up by Auburn to a running back, 241 yards. But Dudley, let's talk about Razorback before we get started.
Record this.
Can you hear us, Fred? Okay. Yeah. But Dudley, let's go ahead and get talking about
record this on your other phone.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Dudley, let's get talking about the Razorbacks, though. Both of these teams, Auburn and Arkansas, have struggled of late, but Arkansas got an impressive win. We talked about going out on the road at BYU, 52-35. There's a lot for Arkansas to gain, a lot for Auburn too, but programs going in opposite directions.
Well, I think that obviously Arkansas got the big win at BYU, and that was definitely a fork in the road for them. But I think this game can be as well. You get to 2-3, and then you start looking at 500. But most of all, continuing to try to push toward getting in a bowl game, which is has to be your first go. Not your last go, but your first go. Always get in a bowl and get those extra practices, get going from there and see what you can accomplish in the offseason.
Yeah. Well, you look at Arkansas, and not many people do it as well as you do, but you talk about the roster for the Razorbacks, 1 through 22. Where do you rank them on a 1 to 5?
Oh, I would say 1 to 22, probably a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
23 to 44.
Now we're looking at 6 to 10. Well, I guess I got 1 through 5 though. And we're looking at probably a 2,
okay,
and then a 1 on the 1 to 85, obviously.
So, but you look at the recruiting classes that have been brought in by Sam Pittman and this staff so far, and what they've got coming in for 23, class of 23, I think they're closing the gap. Do you agree with what I think?
Yeah, I think so. And, they're going to have to continue to close it. But I think that he and his staff have done a really good job at landing some talented players. They've obviously battled injuries. And when you do that, you see that maybe the depth behind your starters and, the 1 to 22 thing we're talking about is not as good as it could be. But obviously, continuing to elevate the program, and it's something that they really look forward to continuing to do. And I think, again, go back to BYU, I think for perception-wise, that win was big, especially coming into an off day, to be able to give both the football team and the state something to look forward to as they go down the stretch.
Yeah, and I look at Arkansas with Sam Pittman. They're strong on the offensive line, and everybody talks about Arkansas secondary gives up a lot of yards, a lot of points, and that they do. But if you've got a good pass rush, that makes things, you're better in terms of forcing the quarterback to go to his second and third read. A lot of quarterbacks don't like to do that. They're going to take the ball and run. And if you can make a quarterback uncomfortable, get out of his comfort zone, and then if you can also
send you this link, but I don't know how to.
If you can
go back to it,
if you can do
that, you send it to me on my
Dudley,
email. Hold on.
I can hear. Okay. But I'm just looking here, Dudley, at this matchup here with Auburn and Arkansas. Auburn is having trouble stopping the run. I mean, Ole Miss ran for about 450 yards. And, Auburn ran for about 300 against Ole Miss. And I think that's why I picked LSU to beat Ole Miss, because I was like, if Auburn can run on you with that offensive line, you got problems. And LSU did it. So KJ Jefferson, this guy, he was just running over people at BYU. And you talk about that game, and that was the number 16 ranked team in the country. What if I'm Arkansas? This is just, I'm not their coach, but if I was, I'd say, guys, we're going to run the ball on Auburn 60 times until they can stop us.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be that many, but they're going to run plenty, because that is something that Auburn's defense has been suspect at. And obviously Arkansas last year led the Power 5 in rushing, and, has continued to succeed this year with Rocket Sanders leading the way. And as you said, KJ being able to get a lot of yards offensively as well via the ground. But yeah, that's got to be their point of emphasis. And Coach Pittman has talked all week about being able to stop the run, both with Tank Bixby and Robbie Ashford, being able to stop that and get them a chance to control the tempo, control the possession of the ball, and be able to get down there and get a win, which, we'll see how it turns out. It seems the Las Vegas odds makers have Arkansas as about a 5-point favorite. We'll see how it plays itself out, but it could be a really big win for them.
Yeah, here's a question I have. Arkansas led the Power 5 in rushing last year. So Auburn in 2013, when our friend Tim Horton, Razorback, was coaching running backs at Auburn in 2013, that was the first time an SEC team had ever led the nation in rushing. And I'm just curious if Arkansas did it last year. Can they claim that they led the nation in rushing? Because obviously there's a group of 5 schools as well, but still, that's an impressive feat. And this is doing this with a roster of what you're calling a lot of 2 and 3 star players. They're getting more 4s, and they'll get the occasional 5. There are only about 33 of them in the country every year, and 75% of them go to 4 or 5 schools. But, yeah, I think Arkansas has a chance to go down there and just run the ball all day long. And Auburn's biggest problem, again, stopping the run. So I think it's the Arkansas team is also kicking themselves. That A&M loss, that one's frustrating. Alabama, you're down to 28-0. You come back with 23 straight points. No quitting this team. And then you go on the road at Mississippi State and lose that one. That one hurt. But Arkansas, are they on a 1 to 5? How, 1 being, they're a mash unit, 5, they're healthy as can be. Where do you rank them?
Oh, I think it's you still got 2 guys, Jalen Catalon and Day Bishop, who are out for the year. But behind that, it seems that everybody else is in that secondary is going to be ready to play. Again, you need those guys back there. But again, I think the line is, the trenches is going to be the big thing. And as you said, while Arkansas wants to run the ball, they want to make sure that Auburn doesn't to the degree that they can, we've seen them do before. So, but I do think, obviously having the off day they were able to get a lot of people healthy, and they're going to go in with as much depth back there as they've had since maybe game 2.
Yeah. And you think about Arkansas' schedule. I mean, Ole Miss's schedule, I think, is definitely back end loaded, but Arkansas, there's been no break. You open up with Cincinnati, was a playoff team last year. There are only 4 of those. You got that win. You beat. Hey, that South Carolina win, Dudley, that's looking more impressive by the week, isn't it?
Yeah, 4 wins in a row for South Carolina. Coach Beamer's done a really good job at kind of rearranging the deck chairs after the trip to Alabama, or the game with Alabama, where they were humbled a little bit. But I think they've come back, won 4 in a row, and certainly look poised to maybe win again this weekend. So he's definitely got them going. And obviously, they're succeeding in special teams, which his dad, was known for. And he's made it a staple of his program here as well. And so you look back and it looks like a pretty good win for Arkansas now, for sure.
Yeah, and looking at, I don't believe in putting ceilings on programs. People will say, there's just no way a school can win more than 9 or 10 games. I just can't, as a fan. The fan in me says treat the word impossible as motivation. Recruiting wise, with what you're seeing, you've been to almost last week, it was close to 60 high schools. I mean, honestly, you've been to more high schools yourself than I think Brian Harson's been to as the head coach at Auburn.
Wow.
Got to say that.
Well, the high school football in Arkansas has improved over the years. Obviously, still not producing maybe as many athletes, Division I athletes, major power ones as you would like. But that's just a product of our state being one of the smaller ones. But the football has gotten better. Arkansas has done a pretty good job these last few years of keeping those top players in state. I know they had a young man named Walker White, a quarterback at Little Rock Christian, who got offered by Alabama last night. So now the Arkansas will have to battle them, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, and several others to get that young man. But certainly, a lot of talent. You just got to keep as much as you can here at home.
Recruiting wise, and Fred Talley's going to join us here in a minute. We're going to talk some Arkansas Razorback football history here on the ECS House Industries Razorback Report with Dudley Dawson of hogville.net. In state, finding offensive linemen, no matter where you go, is difficult. But of the one position, I think more than any other on a football team, player development with offensive linemen, you can do more by redshirting a guy if he'll do it, and 2 or 3 years in the weight room, the old Nebraska model. Is that what Sam Pittman is looking at? Because every offensive lineman he's got, it's kind of like someone that plays basketball for Eric Musselman. That he doesn't take anybody that's not 110%er.
Yeah, there were 2 very high 4-stars last year that he got in the state of Arkansas that you had to, Marion Harris and Andrew Chambly. Both of those guys have seen you've got to see them in practice. They're playing behind a very experienced offensive line, but they're going to be very good. One of them 6'7", around 340. The other one 6'6", about 300. Very big, good offensive lineman. The year before that, he went to St. Louis, Memphis, Oklahoma. Got some big offensive linemen as well. He made the statement that when he got here, after the Chad Morris left hand, left lane and all that, trying to get sleeker, that he wanted to get bigger. And that's certainly what he's done on the recruiting trail, what they've done, in games. And that's been obviously a big benefit for him. And they'll continue to do that. He's gone to Texas and got several in this year's class. So just continue to pile them in there. If you can get as many defensive linemen as you get an offensive lineman, then that's where I think you're going to see the biggest rise in the team.
Yeah, and that I go back to his first year. You had 5 of your top 6 defensive linemen on the 2 deep were injured when Arkansas played LSU, and I think you lost that game 48-45, last second field goal. Again, Sam Pittman fired a shot over the bow in game 1 against Georgia when they had DeJuan Mathis at quarterback, and then he was replaced by Stetson Bennett the 4th. But it's just that line of scrimmage. A lot of Memphis listeners on here. Christian Brothers High School product, Patrick Kudus, talked about his development in year 1, and we'll take a break here in about 40 seconds.
Continues to be a very versatile young man. They're trying him at several different positions. Once the current offensive line leaves, there's a lot of them that will be doing that. Okay. He'll figure right in the mix.
Well, I don't know what it is with offensive linemen, but you mentioned it, Chad Morris. You wanted him sleeker, leaner, lighter. I tell you, that's dangerous because hurry up, no huddles. Those offensive linemen, they don't make it in the NFL, or it takes them a long time to catch up. And I look at schools in the SEC that tried that, and they can't. They whiff at every offensive line prospect they go after. Hey, Dudley Dawson, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more on the Razorback Report, ECS House Industries.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne back with Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, here again, broadcasting from Wynne, Arkansas. This is the ECS House Industries Razorback Report. Dudley, real quick, with Arkansas, you did say this in the preseason when we were talking about the season. Arkansas, and it's very frustrating to fans because as fans, we all want to win every game. You're a competitor, hell of a football player over in Newport, Arkansas, one of the nicest, cleanest cities, and we got 150 acres of flooded green timber over there. So I like it over there. I mean, we're looking forward to spending a lot of time in Newport this year. But you go back and you think about Arkansas could have a better team, but not win 9 games. And again, it's a good sign of the progress of the Razorback program, in my opinion, that you're kicking yourself over the loss to A&M, a team that got a lot of unwarranted hype in the preseason. What's a number, considering all that's happened this season, that's going to keep the Razorback fans, the majority of them, happy? I mean, fans, you want your fans to win every game, but what's a number that you would be happy with?
Well, I think that most fans, if they were honest, that obviously they wanted 10 wins before the season, but I never thought that was going to be a possibility because of all the super seniors they lost and the things that they had to replace. I picked 7-5 going into the season. I had A&M as a loss because I bought into the hype as well that they were going to be really good. Obviously, quarterback has been an issue for them. Yeah, obviously, Arkansas should have won that football game, and we'll probably look back at the end of the year and think that that was truly one that got away, especially the way A&M has played since then. Even though they had a great effort against Alabama, they've not done obviously very well because they're residing in the basement with Arkansas and Auburn right now. One of those teams is going to ascend this week, at least one.
Somebody said you get a get out of jail card.
Yeah. But I think that I think most people, if they're honest, would be okay with 8 wins, including winning a bowl. I mean, if you go 8-5, then they may not outwardly say it, but you continue to make progress, even if it's not the 10-win season that somebody wanted because they had won 9 last year.
Yeah.
As we talked about before, it could have gone either way. A couple of games, you very well could have been 7-6, and you could have won 11. That's just how close those games were. Now we'll see how they finish up the year, but they do know that they finished strong last year, and that's something they believe they can do this year.
Yeah, and I was listening at the end of the Alabama-Texas A&M game. Chris Stewart, the voice, he's filling in for Eli Gold on the Alabama Football Network, and he said, it wasn't the prettiest win, but at the end of the season, they don't ask how, they just ask how many. And as a guy that knows the Razorback program inside out, you've chronicled it really well, and you can go back to the first season in 2020. That's the one that really set the tone in game 1. It was a loss to Georgia, but it was a message Sam Pittman sent out. This staff, these Razorbacks, everybody that I need to win is in this room right here. He delivered on that. And I just personally, I think he's going to have a lot of success at Arkansas if he continues to recruit, not just the area right around Arkansas, the border states, but getting down into the deep South. And he's got a lot of assistant coaches that are able to do that. So I want to switch, and ask you this. You got Oklahoma and Texas coming in to the league, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Arkansas now is no longer going to be the team out on the far western flank. It's going to be Oklahoma and Texas coming in. A lot of rivalry, history. Missouri in there with that. Texas A&M. I think that's also going to energize Arkansas's fans to get to play Oklahoma every year, probably, or these pods. We'll see what happens with that. But I think it's great for football out in that area. My question is, in the state of Texas, what does Arkansas need to do? Get 30%, 40% of their players out of Texas year in and year out, and then get 8 or 9 of the top 12 in their state. If they do that, they're going to be competing in every game.
Yeah, and we talk about Fred Talley and the success he had against Auburn. He was a defensive back when he came to campus, and ended up being a great running back, especially in 2002 when he was first team All SEC. That's one of the things you have to do. This staff, any other staff, has to figure out the ceiling for guys. He can't be what you see in high school, and that's the farthest elevation they're going to be as a football player. You've got to have some developmental skills. You've got to be able to see what a player might be instead of what he is right now. And I think that's one of the things that this staff has done pretty good at. Certainly, Coach Pittman has done it with his offensive lineman. He's proven he can do it as a program, here at Arkansas. So I think that's a couple of things. You got to, not only do you have to recruit well, you have to recruit creatively.
Yeah. Well, We had Philip Lally talking, longtime Auburn assistant coach, saying Auburn typically is not going to beat Alabama out for the majority of the top 10 players in state, but Auburn can out-evaluate those guys. Mm-hmm. And I look at a lot of guys Alabama got when Auburn was on top, when Tommy Tuberville was there. Guys I wish they would have signed that were really good players that went on and had really good careers at Alabama. You know, D'Amico Ryans, Tyrone Prothro, Roman Harper out of Prattville. And they played at Alabama. I don't know if, Roman would have gone to Auburn or not, but I sure wish he would. 2 years with the Panthers, 9 with the Saints, hell of a career. But I look at the state of Arkansas, at the talent, and then I look at what's in Memphis. There are a lot of good players. 2 years ago, Tennessee had 13 football players on their roster from Shelby County, which is Memphis, 11 from Memphis, 1 from Bartlett, 1 from Collierville. How strong is Little Rock high school football compared to Fort Smith? That's what I look at.
There was a shift here the last couple of years, Bryant being one of the big teams, North Little Rock, Parkview, some other schools. Yeah. That the West dominated for the longest time, but with improvement in the numbers in Central Arkansas, improvement really in the coaching, they've got some really good coaches at the schools down there, some traditional power schools that had kind of stepped back a little bit. So that is continuing to improve, and you have to give those guys a lot of credit. And, I think it's sort of like the Arkansas in the fact that you have to figure out what you got. Thankfully, my beautiful wife, Petra, saw what I could be and not what I was back when we were high school sweethearts. So yeah, I love her name. It's Petra? Petra. Petra. Yes. Yeah. That's a great. I love that name. I get told I've outkicked my coverage enough that it begins to get me to say, okay, I know, I get it. It must be funny or have a lot of money or something.
Well, you're all of the above, and you're smart too. And that's it. Fred Talley, I know Fred's having a little bit of trouble. If you can hear us, let's jump in with you right now. A few minutes.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry, I got you.
Okay. We're going to try to get Fred to join us, having some technical difficulties here, but Dudley, again, I'm thinking about high school football, Arkansas, 2.8 million people, Alabama, just over 5 million. And I honestly believe the better, I don't think this is more of a Captain Obvious moment. When you've got a really good college football program going, it makes the high schools ramp up their efforts. You're seeing that firsthand. Fred Talley, Longview, Texas, over in the Piney Woods. Well, I am doing great. Glad you can join us. We're talking about the Razorbacks, what Sam Pittman's doing up there. You live up in Bentonville, and go back 20 years ago when you had DeCorey Birmingham. You had a heck of a backfield. Cedric Cobb, I think he had a foot injury, hurt his toe or something, and you had an okay season up to that point. Razorbacks had, if I remember, it came off a 6 or 7 overtime loss on the road at Tennessee. And I think a lot of Auburn people were going, man, they're going to come in here dog tired. But, not that Houston Nutt ever gets excited about anything. But y'all came in there in that game, and you end up leaving with 241 yards rushing, which is the most ever in Auburn history given up. I'm talking Gene Jelks didn't do it. Cecil the Diesel Collins didn't do it. Johnny Musso didn't do it. You did something pretty special that day. I think you served notice that, a guy from the Piney Woods of Texas and DeCorey Birmingham from Atlanta, Texas, y'all can flat out run the ball, and it still gives Auburn fans nightmares. Talk about that moment and how exciting that was and where you're going now.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. That was a great moment. It was always the best moment of the season because it's usually the first start that I would have. So I've been pretty much fresh. I only had 2 carries in the 6 overtime game in Tennessee. So, fresh legs, ready to go, and just amped up. That's pretty much it.
Well, you look at that Auburn defense in that game hadn't given up more than 350 yards in over 5 years. And Arkansas ran the ball for, I think, 438 yards on the day, which is one of the 2 or 3 biggest numbers in Auburn history. I think Ole Miss ran for 501 yards against Auburn in 1951. What was the mood going into that game? Because that was an Auburn team that had Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams, Jeremiah Cobb at quarterback, and Jason Campbell replaced him. there were a lot of talented players on that field.
Yeah, well, from 2000 on, we were always like one of the top teams in the country, especially at SEC at rushing. So we knew we could run the ball, and like I said, the prior 2 years I had been the leading rusher, so just looking at the bits, ready to get in and look at it as a task, and we were ready to do it. You know what I mean? In 2000, they had Rudy Johnson, kind of outrushed him, but we didn't come away with the win, so it was sweet to get a W.
Yeah. Well, you had a quarterback who could run a little bit from Fort Smith, Matt Jones. That was I think he had a 70-yard touchdown run there late in the game. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net's on with us right now. You remember that game well. I think it ignited Arkansas and sent them. It was the start of something pretty special, wasn't it?
Yeah, and certainly I wish they had memes back then, because can you imagine the amount of memes that Auburn fans would have had with there were plenty of jokes. I mean, I would have Auburn friends, and they'd call me and say, Dudley, I think Fred Talley just ran by my house.
Yeah, I got that one last night.
But yeah, I mean, it was a great time to cover them. That was a lot of great guys. Many of them have stayed up here. I think 2 weeks ago, I went to watch Fred's son play he had a high school football game. That tells you how old I'm getting and how old he's getting.
Fred, man. I mean, Fred, you think about college football. Let's go back 20 years ago when you played, and the kids that are playing today. I mean, we knew the names of everybody on the team, and now with the transfer portal, what do you think football would have been like then if the portal made it so easy to just leave compared to what it is today?
Well, for one, I would have transferred. Just because I didn't feel like I was getting a fair shot. And Dudley, I think you said that I came in as a defensive back. I was a running back, but I was like 7th or 8th string, and I got tired of it. And Coach Burns was convincing me to come to defense, so I left. But some of you get coaches that leave before that 4 years are up, and you might get a new coach that doesn't like you or want to play the guys that he recruited. So, that's a good avenue for us leaving and everything. And, social media the way it is today. I mean, just imagine playing back then.
Yeah, Arkansas was loaded with running backs back then. And these days, anybody doesn't get to play, they're out the door. It certainly would have, I think, been the case back then with a lot of guys. College football would have been different. I like that they have the opportunity to do this, but it certainly has affected the game. And you have to not only recruit the high school ranks, but you have to recruit in the portal to be able to round out your team.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting, Fred, what you're talking about, and Dudley. You got to have, I think the SEC rule is, it was during the year of the virus in 2020, you had to have 53 or 56 scholarship players eligible to play an SEC game. And every time I look at Twitter, another Auburn player is delivering some message that I love it here. These are the greatest fans in the world, but I'm leaving. That's it's tough. I mean, and Fred, you stuck it out and you hung in there. You fought. You never quit. You had some great people around you, Cedric Cobb, DeCorey Birmingham. I mean, these are names that are, going to live forever in Arkansas lore, but it was just like I say, it was a different time back then. But I think the SEC and the popularity of college football, you watch it now, someone who played the game forever. Now you've got sons that are playing the game. Did you ever think that college football, the SEC, would be this big? You're talking each school going to be getting, when Texas and OU come in, $80 to $100 million a year just for being a member of the SEC?
Not that much, but I figured, SEC football would be that big. That's what made me choose Arkansas over some of the Texas schools. You know what I mean? Just because SEC football, almost every year, they're going to either be in the championship game or win it. And, you beat each other up during the season. So.
Yeah, it is brutal. Listen, we're about wrapped up, and Fred, we're going to get you back on. I know we had some technical issues we're going to work through, and we'll make that happen, but we're going to get you back on here again soon because I like talking to the players. I love to compare, 10, 20, 30 years ago and talk to the people who play the games. But I want to thank you for being on here with us. And also, Dudley, tell people before we go to the break how they can follow you at hogville.net because we love having you on here and look forward to – we're about to get into basketball, and then we're going to be getting into baseball. So there's a lot of Razorback stuff to talk about.
Yeah, hogville.net, we like to think is the best message board in Arkansas. Put out a lot of great articles between me, Otis Kirk, Kevin McPherson, great pictures by John James. Really enjoying doing that. Also, Twitter is Dead Sports, DED Sports. And certainly if you want to find out about Arkansas or the Cardinals, Cowboys, or Celtics, you can read there.
I got it. And another quick one for you. With basketball coming up, what are you hearing? I think Arkansas has 6 freshmen on this roster. Their class was ranked 1, 2, or 3, depending on the service that you look at. But is it the most talented team on paper that Musselman has had at Arkansas?
Certainly, Coach Musselman. Now, Coach Richardson obviously had some great teams, and one of them obviously won the national championship. Yeah. So that's who you crown, until then. But certainly, I may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I can tell they're going to be really good and playing until late March, probably. Yeah.
Hey, they look scary good to me. And Musselman's got a lot like Bruce Pearl. I mean, he will get every ounce of these guys. But anyway, Fred Talley, Dudley Dawson, thanks so much for being on the Razorback Report. We'll be right back with more Gary Harris after this quick break.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Brown back with you. Let's head back down to Tuscaloosa. WVUA TV 23. You know him and Rodney Orr every Tuesday night, 6:30 p.m. Do a great show on Alabama, what's going on with the Crimson Tide. Also, great sports radio show every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central, Tide 100.9. I got the app on my phone. It's free. You can put it on there too. So easy. Even Jethro Bodine and Jack Turner can do it. Gary, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Rob. I'm well, thanks.
Oh, college football going into week 9. A week ago, the gloom and doomers out there, the dynasty, it's over. Saban's checking out. Last Friday night, I'm sitting out by the bonfire over at the Cherry Farm at the hunting camp with all the guys drinking some road sodas, and here comes the social media. And I said, I don't think that's real. Who do I call? I called you. I was going to call you or Rodney or Tider Insider. And, like you said, people do some crazy stuff. I mean, if you're sitting around waiting for Nick Saban to retire and you're the fan of another school, thinking that when that happens, then our program will be really good. You're like the salesman on the trading floor that after the $50 million bond issue has been sold and you say, well, if you get some more, my guy wants them, and you get him some more and you call the guy and, well, he just said, no, he'll pass on these. You can't do it that way. And I think there are a lot of fan bases that are just waiting for Nick Saban to retire. My response to that is go out, work them, go out, recruit them. You want to be better than your rival, than the people that are on top, work at it. You got to go do it, Gary. And so Alabama got an impressive win. First time since 2014, Mississippi State scored a touchdown with 1 second left. I know it sounds crazy, but I bet you Nick Saban was pretty mad about that because and as a defense, you love to get a shutout. But let's talk about this Alabama team as they got a week off, but got a big one in Oxford November 5th.
Baton Rouge, yeah. And then Oxford, Rob.
Yeah, Baton Rouge. Yeah, Baton Rouge.
Yeah, I think that the win last Saturday night was solid, was needed, obviously, coming after the loss at Tennessee. And, Alabama has really had, throughout history, Mississippi State's number. And, the wins for the Bulldogs have been few and far between. And since Mike Leach arrived in Starkville, Mississippi State had not scored a touchdown in two games, and that stretch looked like it was going to stretch to 3. And like you said, Mississippi State scored a touchdown on the final play of the game to make the margin 30-6. And that, to their credit, I mean, they kept playing. I mean, Alabama had already kind of put in a lot of backups, and Mississippi State got the ball and used timeouts, and I've seen that a lot with folks against Alabama, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people want to try to score and want to try to get the final margin to look as good as they can, but I think most times around the country, once the game is pretty much decided and you've got your backups in, the other team will, for the most part, usually just kind of cooperate with you and just go ahead and run the game out. But Mississippi State chose not to do that, and they kept in Will Rogers, and they kept in their first team offense, and they got it down the field, and got it down inside the 2-yard line and was able to get a snap off and get a touchdown. And you're right, I don't think that the defense was happy about it. I don't think Nick Saban was happy about it. They wanted the shutout because, as you said, in this day and age in college football, it's hard to get a shutout over anybody, particularly an SEC opponent. And after you've given up 52 the week before to Tennessee, to bounce back and give up just 6 points. Offensively, I thought the first half was solid. They led 24-0 at half. I thought moved the ball pretty consistently, especially through the air with Bryce. Didn't run it great the entire game, but ran it a little bit better in the first half. And Gibbs had a rushing touchdown. The second half, offensively, they didn't do a lot. I mean, they got shut down pretty much by Mississippi State. Kicked 2 field goals and couldn't run it at all. So that was concerning to some degree, but really with the way the defense was playing, by that point the game was in hand. You knew Alabama was going to win the game, but they didn't get much done on offense in the second half. But all in all, you play to win the game. Alabama won the game. They get to the bye week after 8 straight weeks of playing and that 4-game stretch to end it. This is a very, very needed bye week for Alabama for a lot of reasons. They're banged up, gives them a chance to get healthy. Bryce has played in the last 2 games, but from what I've been told, he hasn't really thrown the football during practice, which, somebody made a good correlation to me about it be like a reliever in the bullpen coming in out of the bullpen to pitch, but not getting to throw any warm-up pitches. It's not ideal for a quarterback to not throw during the week and then throw during the game. So hopefully he can get well. Another big storyline in that game was the insertion of Eli Ricks into the starting lineup at cornerback. The very talented transfer from LSU who was a preseason All-American for Alabama, even though he had not played here, and was a freshman All-American at LSU. Took him some time to kind of figure out what he needed to do here, how to practice, what was expected of him. But he got into the game against Mississippi State and played great, Rob. You saw it. I mean, he was a dynamic player at the cornerback position. As I said on my show, it was never a question of talent with him. Everybody knew he could play. We saw him at LSU. He's 6'2". He's long. He can cover. He can play the ball in the air, and he played great. So they're happy to have the bye this weekend and then get ready for the stretch run, which includes the trip to Baton Rouge and then a trip to Oxford and then a non-conference game and then the Iron Bowl at home. So 4 games is what it comes down to if you're Alabama. If they win those 4, they've got a shot to reach all their goals. If they lose one of them, it's going to be a very disappointing season.
Well, and I'm going to go back here and say this, put things in perspective. Alabama took Will Rogers, who just broke the record a couple of weeks ago that Aaron Murray held forever, and he did it in 24 fewer games for most completions in SEC history. Alabama dismantled Mississippi State's offense. We hear about this Mike Leach, air raid and all. Put it in perspective. The week before, Tennessee lit them up for 52 points. And Bryce Young, in my opinion, was still the best player on the field that day, playing hurt. This guy is a great quarterback, but that was a great win. And again, people don't ever fail to appreciate a win. And your program is an elite program when you're really mad because you didn't get the shutout. But that's huge. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs. You've got a lot of talent on that team. And I just, I think now you're right. Your Alabama is 7-1, and they're coming back. Next game, November 5th at LSU. I felt like LSU would beat Ole Miss, Gary. I did the way Auburn exposed Ole Miss that you could run on them, and I think Jaden Daniels is getting better as a quarterback. That matchup, it's going to be huge in Tiger Stadium. Looking at what's most important is how do you match up on game day? What's going to keep you up at night if you're Alabama's coaches preparing for LSU?
Well, I think first of all, Jaden Daniels. I mean, I think that the improvement that he's made this year, we knew he was a good athlete coming from Arizona State, obviously, with his legs and kind of sporadic as a passer. But early in the year, they really struggled to throw the football consistently. And, that impacts your offense. And, I watched the Auburn game and quite frankly thought, Auburn should have won that football game. But in the first half, LSU really struggled offensively. And then toward the end of the half got a little bit going. But they've just continued to improve. And certainly they took it on the chin against Tennessee at home. But the last 2 weeks, against Florida and Ole Miss, this offense has found its legs. And defensively, they have athletes. We know that. I think Harold Perkins, the freshman linebacker out of Texas that was an A&M commit that flipped to LSU right before signing day, is a great football player. I'm not talking about a good football player. I'm talking about a great football player. So it starts with their offense with Jaden Daniels, but defensively, they're good. And they're playing at a high level. What they did to Ole Miss in the second half on Saturday was they just absolutely shut them down. So if you're Alabama, I don't think anything's going to come easy over this 4-game stretch. The 2 road games at LSU and at Ole Miss are going to be tough. And, obviously you have the non-conference game and then you get the Iron Bowl at home. But those 2 road games are really going to be tough beginning with LSU. So I think if you're Alabama, it just keeps you up at night. The fact that you're going to go into a hostile environment. And I know the LSU fans have been unhappy this year with the lack of SEC night games at home, but you and I both knew, Rob, going into this Alabama game, I don't care if the window had not been available, they would have figured out some special exemption or rule to get that game at night. Alabama, when they go down there, they're going to have to play LSU at night. That's just the way it is. It's not going to be any 11 a.m. or 2:30 kickoffs for Alabama, but they're used to it. So it's going to be an incredible environment against an LSU team that's well coached. And I want to say a word about Brian Kelly. When he got hired there, and this is nothing against Billy Napier. I think Billy Napier is going to be a good, be a fine football coach, and he was down there in Louisiana. But you got a chance to get Brian Kelly, who has, let's be honest, he's done everything that there is to do other than win the national championship at Notre Dame. And he was successful at Cincinnati and at Central Michigan before that. So he's a proven.
Yeah, Gary?
As you and I have talked about, there's 65 Power 5 schools, and I would argue that only about a third of those schools have coaches that you would consider legit big-time coaches, maybe 20-something. There's more of these jobs than there are coaches to fill them. But LSU's got a proven head coach, and I think we're starting to see the Brian Kelly influence. He knows how to build a team. He knows how to get better as you go. And now LSU's in the same position that Alabama's in. LSU wins out, they're going to Atlanta to play for the SEC championship. So it's going to be a really tough game. And I think when we watch Alabama this year, Rob, the one thing that is that they're good, but they're not dominant. And maybe they can get to that point as the season goes on. But I thought going into the year, this would be a dominant football team. It's not. It's a really good team, but it's not dominant. And, if they don't play well at LSU, they'll get beat.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this last night. In the SEC this year, Bryce Young, I think, Hendon Hooker, they're up on another level. You got Stetson Bennett the fourth up there too. With his quarterback play, but really look around the league. I don't know if it's because of the portal and there's so much moving around of players every year on every roster on top of the normal graduations and all that. Who are the dominant players? I mean, Will Anderson, he's a great player, but you got, like we talked about, the zero outside of his name in the Tennessee loss. And I'm just thinking, normally we can name a whole bunch. I mean, who's the dominant? You got, I would say, Jahmyr Gibbs, best running back in the league. He's better than Chris Rodriguez, in my opinion. But do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I do, Rob. I'm with you. I don't. When I look around the league, outside of the quarterbacks, you're searching for that tag dominant, and I can't think of a lot of players. I think Will Anderson Jr. was dominant last year. I think he's got dominant ability. I think he's been good. He has not been dominant, and I don't know if that's got to do with the way people have schemed up against him, or I don't know if his play has fallen off for whatever reason. But yeah, he's not been a guy out there like he was last year. Last year, you saw 31 all over the field making plays, and this year, we're not seeing that. We're seeing a guy that's a good football player, but he is not at the level that he was last year. And around the league, especially on the defensive side, there's not a lot of names that jump out that you just say right off the bat, man, that guy's a dominant football player. I do think, as I said, the freshman linebacker at LSU, Harold Perkins, he was dominant against Ole Miss. I know that. And I think he's going to be dominant going forward. But yeah, it's probably not a year as far as just marquee individual players that everybody knows. You mentioned the two quarterbacks, and certainly Will Levis and KJ Jefferson and Anthony Richardson are guys that come to mind, that flash dominant ability and ability to take over a game. But on the defensive side of the ball in particular, it's not one of those years.
Well, and I'm just not seeing the guys, offense, defense, even special teams, field goal kickers. You look at Anders Carlson at Auburn. I know he was hurt last year, but he's not the same guy. Okay. And I just look around this league and it's college football nationally. You've almost got like the Kardashians. They're famous for being famous, but what did they ever do? I mean, well, we know what they did. But this is what's happening with the portal. And I'm just noticing it. But, you get a football magazine and you're reading about all the stuff going on. And it just, to me, it's strange. You try to get a grasp of who's playing and those guys aren't there. A lot of them are gone. And we're talking about Auburn. I mean, you got to have 56 scholarship players to be eligible to play a game, and at the rate Auburn's going, I'm kidding, halfway kidding. They're going to have enough players to play Saturday against Arkansas. I mean, this is crazy. And these guys, I guess these guys will finish the season, but they're talking about how much they love it and this and that and that. But reminds me of what Nick Saban said about when he talks to the NFL executives when they ask about a kid to evaluate him for the NFL draft. Nick Saban said there are two conversations that you have. You have the and conversation. You say, Gary Harris is a great kid. He's a 6'5", 275-pound defensive end who runs a 4.69 40, and he goes to church, goes to mass every morning before he goes to school, and he spends time at the Senior Citizen Center doing charitable work, but he's always late to practice, and he doesn't like to work out. That's not really you, but I'm just using it as an example. But I think that's one of the best stories I read about these kids. Compare the toughness of the guys on, like you said, you thought Alabama could be a dominant team this year, and they don't look to be. But is there a dominant team anywhere in college football, Gary? Because you know football inside out.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's sometimes I guess you can't really answer that question until the end of the season. And then you look back and say, boy, that team turned out to be dominant. Is there a team that could run the table? I think potentially. Yeah, I think potentially Ohio State, Georgia, who knows, maybe Tennessee. Even though I don't think Clemson's at the level of those teams, I still think they've got a shot because I think they could certainly get through their conference and their conference championship game undefeated. And if you could do that, then you don't have to win 2 games to finish 15-0. So I think there's an opportunity for a team to finish unbeaten. And if you can do that in this day and age with the parity that's out there, if you can get to 15-0, then, would you be considered a dominant team? You'd certainly be in the conversation regardless of how you did it. But that's going to be tough to do. And as far as just a team like we've seen maybe with LSU in 2019 or Alabama in 2020, and even some of those Alabama teams that didn't win the national championship or had a loss, I thought they were certainly dominant during the regular season. So there's a lot of parity, a lot of good teams out there, and we'll just have to see how it falls out.
Yeah, I know you got to get going. We're about to go to a break, but they follow you, Tide 100.9, WVUA TV 23, and your Twitter.
Yeah, at Gary Harris _WVUA, Tide 100.9.com, and WVUA23.com. You can stream it, listen to me, watch me on TV, and all that good stuff. Thank you so much, Rob.
Absolutely. See you next week. Always enjoy it. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you, going into hour number 2 on Sidelines on this Thursday. Head into week 9 of the college football season. Lots of big matchups coming up. Always love having Gary Harris on with us from Tuscaloosa, covers Alabama, knows the SEC and the big picture of college football. I will say the reason I brought this up before we go to Billy Roberts is going to join us from Atlanta, and then Lauren Smith, followed by Damian Mitchell from Jocks 94.5 in Birmingham. But I'm seeing this. It's like you ask people, who are the dominant players in college football? We know Bryce Young, Heisman Trophy winner, could win it again this year at Alabama. Hendon Hooker, those two are the front runners. They played against each other. Hendon Hooker got the win. A lot of football to be played, but how many people can name the front 7 of their school or their rivals or their upcoming opponents? It's getting tough because the portal is making it so darn easy for people to just move around and go from one school to the other with really no accountability. But there are windows. I think December 5th, that's when the window at the end of the season for transfers, and you're already starting to see these guys stack up. They're like planes on the runway at LaGuardia on a Friday afternoon, stacking up when you're trying to fly back home to Atlanta or Birmingham or Memphis. That's what's happening. And you look around college football, the fans keep giving us money. Just give us money. We just money. You can't park here. You can't park there. No. I got advice for what it's worth to athletic directors and university presidents. You better open the doors to your fans. Who owns college football? It's the fans. Buddy Martin, GatorbaitMedia.com, on with us every week on the College Football Saturday Roundtable. He's right. Take the loyalty oath. The players, you want the fans in the stands, you show some loyalty. Fans show loyalty to the players. But it's a two-way street. You can't continue to ask fans to show up and sacrifice and spend what they spend to go to the games. Have you checked what a 2-night minimum is at a decent hotel that has clean drinking water and a bed without bed bugs in Auburn? I mean, it's $700, $1,000 a night in a lot of these places for a big game. Okay, you take a family down there, 3 or 4 kids and a man and a woman, husband and wife, man, you can spend $3,000 or $4,000, and you don't want to go watch a team with a bunch of malcontents on there that don't care and aren't going to show up. That's what you don't want to see happen. I mean, I see this happening, this trend in college football. We better watch out. NIL, look at the programs where they're giving out NIL money at Miami and Texas A&M like Halloween candy. And they're both 3 and 4 cellar dwellers in their respective conferences. Mario Cristobal got a 10-year, $80 million contract. Miami has never spent that kind of money on a football coach. That's a pro sports town. You know, we were talking with Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South, on Wednesday's show yesterday. Check it out. Go to the archives, www.sidelines.live. We have all of our shows up there. He talks about, you know, they used to have Miami-Dade, Broward County. They maybe they go over to Collier County, to Naples and Monroe County, whatever, but they can't do that anymore. They're not it ain't coming back. It's not going to be what they had from the early 80s to the early 2000s. I mean, that 18-year run, 83 to 91, Miami won 5 national championships. They also played for it another, I think, 4 times. Came up short, second place, first loser. You've got Central Florida now. You got University of South Florida, Florida International, Florida Atlantic, Florida State, the Gators. Billy Napier just flipped a 4-star from Florida State. Again, lots of stuff happening. And just giving out money to players and bringing in a bunch of mercenaries that don't really want to be there and are not fully invested in your program is going to lead to your demise. People say you don't know Aggies and their egos and their wallets, or Texas fans. Well, I do. They got a lot of money. Sure they do. They ain't the only ones with money. But you'd have to be mentally insane, a living brain donor, to flush $85 million down the toilet to get rid of a coach. But you know what? As an athletic director, Ross Bjork at Texas A&M, who left Ole Miss to take that job, you think about it. Billy Roberts is on with us right now over in Atlanta. If you're an athletic director, you're a university president, and you've been strong-armed by some agent, okay, wearing some, suit that he looks like a fishing lure, and you've given up all your leverage. And you have a guy like Jimbo Fisher, $85 million walks out the door if you fire him without cause. He's bringing in recruits. We talked about all the NIL money. Nick Saban fired a very calculated shot over the bow this summer about what's going on at A&M with NIL. But again, I agree with all of our Rodney Orr, Gary Harris. I follow Alabama closely. I don't know them like they do, but he was trying to get his own fan base excited. The Red Elephant Club, their big donor base. But Gary Harris made a good point, Billy. Earlier this summer, Alabama fans are saying, look, we already have the top program in all of college football. We are at the top of the mountain, and you're asking us to give more for NIL. Think about it, people. There are all these collectives. That's once the players are on campus. Then you got to have another one to go get them to come. You got to be careful it didn't pay for play. The lines have been blurred. There's no leadership in the NCAA. But the program, if you bring these kids in and you do it the right way with NIL, it can work. But ask yourself, are you spending more money on NIL than you are giving to your own children? That's a question. Remember the old newscast? They do it at Channel 3 in Memphis every night at 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Billy Roberts, great time of the year. Lauren Smith's going to join us in just a second. He lives the lifestyle of Robin Leach. He's down at Amelia Island for a book signing, getting ready for Florida, Georgia. Isn't this a great time of year?
It is. And, you and I had the privilege of spending some time in Athens with Lauren, and, what in the world, that guy's got it figured out. He's beloved by everybody in town. Decades of good work have made him a great guy, and we enjoyed him thoroughly. We went, if you remember, last year for the Georgia-Kentucky game, beautiful day in Athens.
Yeah. And
we both went and bought books in the bookstore.
Yeah.
And stood in line with all the civilians to get them signed, and he was charming and gracious, and had a nice word for everybody. So good for him. He's a lovely guy.
Yeah, I mean, 50 plus years, sideline reporter, now the Georgia Football Network pregame show. Lauren's going to join us in just a few minutes. Billy, you live in Atlanta, and there are a lot of fans there. Georgia Tech, Auburn, Alabama, Clemson, Florida, Tennessee. It's big, big, big. Got to ask you, just being an Auburn guy from LaGrange, would you want to see that rivalry go home and home, Jacksonville rotation like that, or just keep it in Jacksonville?
I think that if the fan bases want it in Jacksonville, they're the ones paying the money. They're the ones buying the tickets, and they've made that a special, fall trip to the beach. It's more than just a football game. And, one of the nice things about that is you reconnect with old friends, not only at the tailgate, but at the beach, in Jekyll or St. Simon's or Amelia. Right. So it's more than just the Saturday event. And so there's a lot to give up there. In the case of the obviously analog would be the Iron Bowl, with Birmingham being the site for a long time between Auburn and Alabama. What was unfair there to Auburn fans was, for a long time before Bryant-Denny Stadium had been improved, that was where at Legion Field, Alabama played a lot of their big games or big TV games. When the Penn State would come south, that's where they would play. They wouldn't play in And so it was always a home game for Alabama, no matter how they tried to spin it. And Auburn finally, under Pat Dye, won 4 in a row and had enough leverage to say, the contract's up, we're not going to renew it, we're bringing the game home. And per SEC rules, we can pick where we play our home game. If you don't like it, stuff it. They even had to cut a deal. If you remember, they played I think it was the 89 game on
91. They had to go back to Legion Field.
They played two. Yeah, they played it in Auburn, and then they played 2 more in Legion Field just to kind of complete the divorce, I guess, if you want to call it that way. And then I think even Alabama would admit, because they've improved their stadium and their campus experience so much, that it's been great for both towns, Auburn and Tuscaloosa. Both stadiums, all the facilities have had such a leap since the early 90s. You and I have seen it all over there.
Yeah.
And ultimately that was the right call, but it was because half of the fan base, the Auburn half, demanded change because it was unfair. But the cocktail party in Jacksonville is a equally beneficial site, not a neutral site, but Florida doesn't play any other games there unless they're in a Gator Bowl at the end of the season. And that's happened before. But they don't play regular season games there in Jacksonville. So I think it comes down to what the fans want, even more so than what the coach might want. Kirby Smart's getting paid to win games, and he's going to try to maximize every little advantage that he can eke out. Right. And that's what he's getting paid to do. I don't blame him. He's a competitor. He sees an advantage and he's going to try to take it. But it would be a pity for the fans to just rip up tradition, even for a successful coach that has a lot of leverage right now.
Well, you go back in 94 and 95 when the Gator Bowl was under construction, they revamped it. You did a home and home. They played 1 year in Athens, 1 year in Gainesville. I think Florida won 100-0 in those 2 games, scored 50 in both games. Georgia is on top of the college football world right now, sitting at number 1, defending national champions. But you go back and look at this rivalry. Steve Spurrier was 11-1 against Georgia.
Yep.
Ron Zook won some games. Urban Meyer won a bunch. In that 21-year span, 12 years of Spurrier, 3 years of Giggles the Clown, Ron Zook, and then 6 years of Urban Meyer, who I would love to see back in coaching. If there are any openings at SEC schools, why not hire Urban Meyer?
I can only imagine one opening at an SEC school that would fit for him. You and I know where that is.
The Vanderbilt job, isn't it?
That would be terrifying to have a coach of that caliber at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
my kids that are being coached by a really good coach, that would be terrifying.
Yeah, Audrey, is like, she wanted Tennessee to get him. Said, load up the Brinks truck, just open up the bank vault. Urban, what do you want? I mean, he's got a few warts, public, image things that have happened here, move on.
Here's the thing though, you when I joined, you were talking about buyouts. So what cannot happen anymore with an agent, is setting up a guy like that with an $80 million buyout, because he's had a couple of flameouts. he's had an NFL flame out, and they had a big buyout there. He's had a college football where he's walked away from 2 national champion programs that he built, by the way.
Yeah.
But so if he does put his toe back in the college waters, it wouldn't be right because of his flakiness. Let's call it that. To give him like a $40 million guaranteed buyout, that because it's guaranteed that he's going to flake out. So that's what the guarantee is. He will.
Yeah.
He'll claim he's got migraines or he can't handle the stress of recruiting or whatever it is.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Auburn's got to get it right if they make a change with Brian Harsin. And did you know that Brian Harsin and the staff were out recruiting last week? They made sure everybody knew that. But since it's day 679, Auburn football held hostage with Brian Harsin. Doug Dean brought that statistic to our attention yesterday. And Jimmy, who is in transit from Knoxville back to Chicago this morning aboard the Greyhound bus. He has more miles logged on Greyhound than any man I've ever met in my life. He's not able to be on here with us today, but his response yesterday was, well, you say 678 days. I look at it and say 32 days. That's when the last Auburn game, the day after Auburn plays Alabama, if they're going to do something, maybe they'll do something before then, but it's kind of like it's a hostage crisis.
Well, my dream scenario is that Auburn wins that game and they let him go anyway, so that would be awesome because too many times Auburn has, when the cards are stacked against them, they've eked out a win in the Iron Bowl, and then we get crazy and offer the coach a significant extension, just like with Malzahn, it's happened before, and even with Tuberville, who we love. They win an Iron Bowl they weren't expected to win, and it gives them several more years and it triples their buyout, and Auburn has got to not do that. So hopefully they can have some discipline this time around.
Given the current landscape, Billy, of college football, you're introduced as the new head football coach at Auburn University. Your goal is not to beat just Alabama because in the last 40 years, Auburn's beaten Alabama 20 times. Alabama's beaten Auburn 20 times. So what now? It's what's happened in the Georgia rivalry with Auburn. I mean, in this millennium, Auburn is 7-16 against Georgia. Very similar to what Florida did in that 21-year span of Spurrier, Zucker, Ron Zook, and Urban Meyer. They were 17-4 or 18-3. And look where Georgia is. I mean, that is Tennessee had lost 15 in a row to Alabama until they got that win a couple of weeks ago in Neyland Stadium, 52-49 on a knuckleball from Phil Necro from the field goal kicker.
It looked like a loaf of bread going through the
it did. Yeah. But Billy, I got to ask you, you're introduced as the Auburn coach. Coach Dye, how long is it going to take to beat Alabama? 60 minutes. Next question. Yeah. The Auburn coach now.
Was that not the greatest interview question and answer of all time?
It was. But now Auburn, what about what's happened with Georgia? You should have had 3 in a row against LSU, but that's just this Auburn team. But you've got a lot at Auburn. You are cornered on every side by the University of. And that's what you got to remember. You got to come out swinging. I mean, as soon as you are hired, you need to be on a plane going to recruit, don't you?
Well, you do. And, you and I talked about this years ago, that it's a tough neighborhood, where Auburn is. We're in an area where we're an Alabama university, but we're so close to the Georgia border that it might as well be a Georgia university. And those towns that have great football tradition in the western part of the state of Georgia have always sent a lot of kids to Auburn. Those kids grow up as children of Auburn alumni. And I'm thinking Carrollton and LaGrange and Hogansville and Columbus, and of course, Phoenix City right across the river. It might as well be Columbus, So there's always, and even down in South Georgia, Thomasville, we've gotten, William Andrews came from Thomasville a million years ago. Right?
James Brooks out of Warner Robins, Takeo Spikes out of Sandersville.
Yeah.
There's no,
but that's what's changed. And that,
we're going to take a quick break. Hold those thoughts. We're going to take a quick break, talk more SEC football. Rob Browne, Billy Roberts on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with Billy Roberts. We'll be joined in a minute by the longtime legend broadcast crew, the Georgia Football Network. Lauren Smith will join us from Amelia Island, Florida. Billy, I like this conversation, and we're talking about recruiting the bi-state area. You know, we had Jack Patterson and Rex Castillo, the two sports anchors, WRBL News 3 on your side, my old employer, Channel 3 in Columbus, Georgia. You remember what they said, that Auburn-Georgia State game last year, that Auburn won in miracle-like fashion with the Vulcan at quarterback, TJ Finley. Hats off to Smiley, my fraternity brother, for coming up with that nickname, the Vulcan, because he's kind of, he's statue-like back there in the pocket.
Yeah. Birmingham people would understand that reference.
Yes. And but what the point was, they said the talent between Auburn and Georgia State, they had covered 41 of those players in high school at Channel 3 right there in Columbus, in that metro area. There is so much talent. If you can't win 7 or 8 games a year at Auburn, you shouldn't be coaching.
Well, that's exactly right. And it used to be that, an Auburn and a Tennessee and Clemson could reliably get 10, 12 kids, sometimes 10 or 12 starters out of the state of Georgia.
Okay.
And, that's kind of gone away in terms of like 4 stars, you can still get, there's so many kids. How many is like 285 D1 guys? Something in like
Georgia.
That?
Yeah. And speaking of Georgia, Lauren Smith, again, longtime member of the Georgia Football Network, a native of Wrightsville, Georgia, patriarch of Georgia and Southern football, living the great life, working harder than a dozen Mennonite farmers on his new book, down at Amelia Island, getting ready for the Florida-Georgia rivalry. And Lauren, what do you got? Quickly.
Well, I tell you, Rob, it's been fun this week for me. I left early Tuesday, driving over to, where did I start? I started out near Augusta, got on US 1, Old Tobacco Road in Georgia. And I drove US 1 all the way to Waycross. I had plans to visit with a friend in Patrick Jones. And then I was going to get up yesterday morning and paddle the Okefenokee Swamp, but it had rained and I didn't get to do that. And it's been something that I've been wanting to do for years, but I came on into Jacksonville last night, had dinner with Vern Lundquist, who's the guest of my friend Vern Brinson, who used to be the president of the Gator Bowl. So it's sort of an old home week kind of situation here, and it's good to see Vern. We've been reminiscing. We were in a conversation about Vin Scully, the great announcer who passed away a few months ago. Vern was very, very close to Vin Scully, who was a marvelous announcer, just a unique guy. So I'm learning a lot by not going to bed as early and by not reaching into the liquor cabinet too much.
Hey, we were very lucky. We had Vern Lundquist on the show about 3 weeks ago, and that was really special. And when I talked to his brother Dan back this summer, my friend Dave Cody, longtime TV sports anchor out in Austin, Texas, helped make that happen. And Dan, his brother Dan, was so nice And I said, we have Lauren Smith on the lot with us. I love him. And he goes, man, Vern loves him. And that's so cool. These relationships and the history when y'all are together. Maybe you and Vern Lundquist could write a book. I know you've got a lot on you, and you may be having to go write another national championship book this year, but we got to give your arm a rest. But man, the stories that y'all could tell, man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight? All those dog people up there, St. Simon's and Jekyll Island.
The conversation we had last night, and it continued on this morning, once Vern got up and got his heart to beating, we talked about the interesting thing when Ben Scully was in his prime with the Dodgers when they started out in Los Angeles. There was no TV in Southern California, and everything was radio. And then when they played the first 4 seasons, it took them 4 years to build Chavez Ravine. There was no the stadium was pretty bad. I mean, it was the left field screen they put up, a 42-inch screen, was closer into home plate than the Green Monster in Boston. And so people way out in this stadium, which was configured for football and Olympics, they couldn't see the numbers. And they brought transistor radios to the stadium, and that became a Dodger tradition. I don't know if they use it today or not. But I had a chance to visit with Scully and talk to him about that, about 2 years before he passed away, maybe 3. And radio was just so big for so long. Now television just trumps everything. And gosh, I think if you get up a Tiddlywinks contest in the SEC, and television would cover it. Just no end to what television can do today and what it has done. But I just visited with Greg Garrett, to the head of the Gator Bowl, the Taxslayer Gator Bowl, and he was talking about the challenge they have and what they don't know that's going to happen once they go to 12 teams, which looks like where it's headed. And I learned a lot from that conversation. The problem is the playoff committee can expand in theory, but they can't find a place to play. Where are we going to play? Where are you going to squeeze it in? Because once college season ends, the NFL takes over Saturday and Sunday. And you don't think the NFL, which has a free farm system, is about to give a bone to college athletics. They ain't about to do that.
Yeah.
That's the damnedest thing there is. In the NFL has no cost of a farm system, and they contribute not 1 penny to college athletics.
That's shocking, because college puts everything into the NFL. And there's no reciprocation. That is shocking. And you talk about Vin Scully. I am a radio junkie. My dad is 94. He's listening right now. He goes, that Lauren's a good young man. And I'm telling you, you're up. I always brag about you. I get these texts 4:30 in the morning, 5:30 your time, and you get up, you walk, you're out every day. And you were talking about going to the Okefenokee Swamp. When I was a young boy, we stopped off. My dad made us go over to Camp Stewart in Hinesville, Georgia, where he was in the Army after he graduated from Auburn in 1954 for several years. And we went through the Okefenokee Swamp and took the tour. And I remember I got so excited, as I'm known to do. I got separated from my mom and dad, my 2 sisters, and I got lost. And they kept talking about this 16-foot gator that was hanging out by the boat ramp. And I looked out there and I just saw him, and he just kind of mesmerized me, like Kaa the snake in the Jungle Book with those eyes. And next thing you know, my parents said, "Come on over here." And that thing was just out there. But I remember going out in the swamp and seeing all the skulls, human skulls on sticks. And it's an incredible place. It just adds to the magic of Jacksonville and that Florida-Georgia rivalry. It's big, isn't it?
It really is big, Robin. I don't know too many people who would take a detour of any kind to go to the swamp. They're going to take a detour. They're going to take a direct route to the bar.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It was fun. Trust me, when we got to Destin, first thing we always do is go to Odom's Supermarket on Highway 98. My dad would get a case of Budweiser leaded beer, and then I'd make him Scotch and waters on the beach every day. So he's got his priorities in the right place. But Lauren, I know we just got a few minutes. We're going to be respectful of your time, and we treasure it. Paul Wickenheiser's listening out in Reno, Nevada. Jeff Boone up here in Memphis. They're huge. These dog fans, they're huge fans, but they're concerned because you had a close game against Kent State. You had a close game against Missouri. The common thread is dogs won both of them. Robert Durham, John Hearn, they're listening down in Bowden, Georgia, and Monroe, Georgia. A lot of dogs. I think this is a really good team. What do you think about at this point compared to last year at this point?
Well, we don't have the maturity. It didn't have the senior leadership that was entrenched like it was last year. It's coming around. But I think if you think about the long haul, you're going to have an off day. You're going to have an off week. The key to being successful when you get to the national championship hunt is to be able to win the close games and be able to win when you have an off day. We played really poorly against Missouri out there at night. We had an off day, but we won. I don't care about style points. I don't care about how you look. I think the bottom line is trying to get into the winner's circle.
That's
and
right.
We've seen Alabama do well for years under Nick Saban because in the beginning he out-recruited everybody. He had more depth. So he was able to beat you when his team was having an off day. But even so, Rob, I don't have the statistics. Hadn't been too many teams to go undefeated in recent years, and I don't think you're going to see a lot of that in the future because there's just too much talent out there. And the lesser teams, or the teams who don't have the reputation of being great in a particular year, they have players too, which is why Appalachian State can beat Texas A&M, why Marshall can beat Notre Dame, and why Georgia Southern can beat Nebraska, all on the road.
Yeah.
That means there's talent out there. Those teams are not going to, if they were in the SEC, they probably wouldn't do so well. But on a given day, they can beat you if you're not ready to play.
Yeah, they can. Lauren, when I go to Auburn, I buy those, you put it around your neck. It's the radio broadcast of Andy Burcham and the Auburn Network, Stan White. It's real time. It's exactly as what's happening on the field. When I watch a game, I know how to sync my TV to the radio. And nothing against the guys on TV, but with radio, it's like you being the infantry on the ground with air support up above. It's invaluable. I mean, the stories, the bylines, and everything like that. And I think one of the funniest things you've ever told us was I did an interview one time, and it was a wonderful interview. And Larry Munson came back and he said, "Lauren, great job, but we had a dead mic."
Well, funny things can happen and have happened in radio. I can't remember. Everybody has some bloopers in the business.
Yeah.
Some people have bloopers in life.
Yeah.
So you just want to be able to survive and look back on it and smile. But I really think that the great fun of radio is that you get a feel for here and now.
Yeah.
I remember I gave a sideline report once when Herschel Walker was playing at Georgia. It might have happened his first year in 1980. Everybody saw him come out of the game. Everybody saw him get on the trainer's table, and everybody saw the trainer, the team doctors crowding around. And so I said what really happened. I said, well, interesting just happened down here. Dr. Butch Mulheron had given Herschel an examination, and Mike Cabin, the assistant coach who recruited him to Georgia, asked, how is it? And so I said, Butch, in a lighthearted moment, said, well, it's broken. And then he said, just kidding. And you could hear the stadium go, They were so relieved. And that's when it made me realize that while it wasn't necessarily a transistor effect by that time, people did listen to the broadcast in the stadium in headsets and all other means of taking in the Munson play-by-play.
Well, and you on the sidelines. I mean, Lauren, what do you got? Quickly. Billy, we've got a few minutes left with Lauren Smith before he's got to get to a book signing. We've got to make sure he gets there on time, and look forward to getting you back on next week, hopefully. But come on in.
Lauren, you're turning into Stephen King. You're cranking out a book about every 6 months. My goodness. When are you going to retire? There's no slowing you down.
Never.
No, I don't ever plan to retire.
That's good. You know what? My dad's 87. He still works 3 days a week. Yeah. But
well, I hope, Lauren, you don't ever retire.
No, absolutely not. So, Lauren, I got to ask you, it's election season here in Georgia. I live in Atlanta, as you know, and there's ads all over the place for Herschel running for the Senate. And I know you are friends with him. What can you tell us about his mood? Is he feeling positive and upbeat? What's the latest?
Well, he's suffering a lot of slings and arrows, but he's smiling through it. I don't know about politics, but the polls say he's got a great chance to win. So it will be interesting. I sort of feel Herschel has some pretty good instincts. I remember we all went, several of us on our staff went to New York with him when the year he won the Heisman Trophy. And I remember going with him over to ABC. And Joan London was still active with Good Morning America, and she went over his statistics, how many times he carried the ball, and she said, Herschel, don't you get tired of running so much? He said, no, ma'am, the ball ain't so heavy. So
great answer.
So he's had some of that happened in his political campaign that I picked up on, but he still, if you're in politics, half the world's going to hate you, and the other half probably loves you or tries to, but you're going to get a lot of slings and arrows if you get into politics.
It is. Lauren, we've only got about a minute left. Tell people how they can get your book, or what do you got? I love it. Again, every chapter is an episode of Andy Griffith that needs to be put on TV. I love it. I love your writing style. It's special.
Well, the University of Georgia bookstore is one place, but you can order it online. You can order I think you can order anything online now today. Anything you think of, if it's a carrier that can carry it, you can get a drag line. You can order that online. So that's the best place to go online and get it.
All right. Well, look, man, and I know you got your new book hopefully going to be released in the spring. Is that still a possibility?
Yeah, I just met with a publisher last week to do a little mop-up. And Kirby has been great, just tremendous to work with. He's not uncooperative. He doesn't have time to write a book.
Yeah.
But he finds a way. And in fact, we were talking in June. He says, I hope that's it. I said, no, I need one more session.
Well, as an Auburn fan, Rob and I would love for you to track him further with that book.
Yeah.
He said, I said, we got to have one more session. He said, I don't have time. But then he said, what are you doing Tuesday? This was like Friday. I said, well, I'm here for you. He says, well, meet me at the airport at 9:30. So I go out to the airport, we get in a plane, and we fly to San Antonio. He was speaking to the high school coaches, Texas high school coaches annual clinic. So I interviewed him all the way to San Antonio and back. That's how we got it done. He could teach somebody like the CEO of the biggest corporation in the country something about time management. That's why he's so successful. That's how he gets so much done.
Absolutely. Lauren Smith, be careful. Have a great time in Jacksonville. You'll get to see Tony Barnhart, Buddy Martin, all the Franz Beard, everybody will be down there. But thanks so much for your time, and look forward to having you on next week. It's always a treasure and a pleasure.
You're the greatest, Rob. Don't care what they say about you. You're the greatest. You're my hero.
Well, ditto. Thanks so much. We'll be right back with Damian Mitchell, Jocks 94.5 in Birmingham, right after this quick commercial break on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you on Thursday going into week 9 college football season. Great segment there with Lauren Smith, a long-time Georgia Football Network, 50-plus years, sideline reporter, pregame show, accomplished author. Billy, you're right. Stephen King, move over. Lauren Smith, writer emeritus on Georgia. Damian Mitchell, lot going on, man. Been a crazy morning. Tell you one thing, I'll write things down on schedules and all, and I'm looking at who's coming in and who's coming there. And doing a show yourself on Rocks 94.5 in Birmingham, how crazy and fluid this business is. You got to pretend like you're a pilot at 40,000 feet flying from Memphis to Heathrow in London, and halfway across the Atlantic, you lose the plane engine. What do you say? I got 3 more. How are you?
Hey man, no complaints this way, brother. It is it's the busiest time of the year. It is the busiest time of the year. But all is well. All is well. We're just sitting around talking ball. We're starting to get to the nitty-gritty. As teams are starting to tell us exactly who they are at this point.
Yeah. Billy, I know you've got just a couple of minutes before you got to get on a conference call. And I know he's got to get off to a call because he's an IT guy with Oracle. But Damien, looking around, I mean, you're there in Birmingham, what I call Atlanta, the largest college sports market in America, 6.5 million people in 22 counties. Birmingham per capita, 85% identify as a college football fan. The other 15% did not receive the survey yet. So you know what I'm talking about because it's big down there, man. This is really big. I tell you, watching all the football being played, there's so many takeaways. You know, you cover Auburn, you cover Alabama, cover the SEC, and you got the battle for the belt. You know, Troy, South Alabama, UAB, Jack State, Birmingham Southern, your school. It's important to the people of Alabama. And there are 22 4-stars in high school football in Alabama this year, 7 5-stars in the state. I've never seen a year like this. Let's talk about the football climate in Tuscaloosa, Auburn, and everywhere in between.
Oh yeah, man. It really starts with the University of Alabama. They set the foundation of what the standard is and the way football is. And we get that home cooking being from Alabama. We get a chance to see like, oh man, I love the Iron Bowl. You look at the pageantry with it being in Birmingham for all those years. And now it's a nationally just broad game. And you look at it, it's matriculated to every single level when it comes to football. Everybody, we live it, we breathe it. It's all we ever strive to be. All we ever strive to hope for is to play on Saturdays because we don't have a professional team to cheer for. We do in the USFL and the Birmingham Stallions, but in all seriousness, when it comes to our professional team, pretty much it's either Alabama or Auburn. And if you can find a way to play ball somewhere within the state, you'll know firsthand that we are the standard in which football is being played.
Yeah, and you look at the Monday Morning Birmingham Quarterback Club. You look at Jack Crow, Kevin Skarbinski, CoachSafely.org. You and I met that dinner at Vestavia Hills Country Club August 22nd. Doug Dean was there, our friend AU Daily Dose. There was so much. It was absolutely packed. And that city, their goal this year, I think is, they've already raised over $1 million at Quarterback Club. They've got QB, what they call QB1, the helicopter for Alabama Children's Hospital. It is unbelievable what football can do to pull people together with a natural rivalry like the Iron Bowl. And fans of all these other schools, they all pull for Birmingham, which benefits. It just has a ripple effect throughout the state. what are you seeing right now with Auburn and Alabama and the SEC? I see Bryce Young. I see Hendon Hooker, Jahmyr Gibbs. Name me some more, superstars, rock stars, because it's a strange year. There's talent, but maybe is there a lot of parity? How do you make sense out of it?
Really, truly, it's been kind of cool to see how individual players can attribute to the team's success. When we look at Ole Miss, for example, last year it's all about Matt Corral. It's all about how Lane can coach the quarterback. Now you have Jackson Dart coming in, and he's not really the focal point. It's Judkins and Zach Evans out of the backfield. Ole Miss comes in as being one of the top teams rushing the ball in the conference and pretty much the nation. And when you look at different teams, you look at Alabama with, like you said, you have Bryce Young, Jahmyr Gibbs, and just look at a lot of these teams in the SEC and where they're having success. It starts at the quarterback position. I was real high on Tennessee coming into the season. I was probably one of very few people that said they could win 10 games, and now we're sitting here having a conversation where Tennessee might be playing for a college football playoff spot in year 2 under Josh Heupel. Yeah. So when you look at the SEC as a whole, it's starting to see a lot of more parity. When you see a team like Texas A&M, who was number 6 in the nation to start the season, is fighting for their absolute lives just to get just to get into a bowl game. One thing I've learned in this season is you don't know what you don't know. Week to week, it is a complete dogfight from top end to the bottom. Who would have told me, if you'd have told me that Georgia was going to struggle with Mizzou a couple of weeks ago up there in Columbia, I would have called you crazy. And they barely escaped that game. So when it comes down to the SEC, man, it's proven week in and week out that it's the best conference from top to bottom.
Were you shocked last week when Ole Miss at 7-0 went into Baton Rouge and got killed 45-20? Because I wasn't, because when I saw Auburn score 34 points on them, a run for over 300, and this isn't a great Auburn team, it's not even a really good Auburn team, I was like, well, I think LSU's gonna get the W. And I'm curious, what about Ole Miss's schedule? Because it is definitely back end loaded.
Yeah, if anything, Ole Miss has shown us that their defense is exactly what we thought it was. And I think it was, you hear a lot of people say, oh, they ain't played anybody. I think that was a pretty good example of it, because now since you've gotten into the gauntlet of the SEC, it's proven that your front seven is consistent enough or strong enough to hang with these teams. Like over the years since Lane has been there at Ole Miss, it's been one of those things. His offense has been able to suffice whatever the defense has drawn. Now it's the offense isn't as good or as potent as it once was. So now you're banking on having to outscore people, and when you're just not talented as you used to be. And like you said, you see an Auburn team who has been trying to figure itself out week in and week out have over 300 yards rushing, to topple that with LSU, who is as dysfunctional they are week in and week out. To go out there and absolutely boat race you after the first quarter. Yeah, it was pretty shocking. And now when you go into this Texas A&M matchup, a Texas A&M team that is desperate, I mean, absolutely desperate for a W. Jimbo Fisher, he's got a lot to prove, but also Lane Kiffin has a lot to prove. So I think it's one of the more intriguing matchups of really and truly when you looked at the schedule coming into it in the preseason with such high expectations for Texas A&M, and we had some of the biggest question marks for Ole Miss, this game has gotten a whole different look now as we are approaching kickoff this week.
You look at Mississippi State and what they've been doing with Will Rogers, but against Alabama, not an elite team, not an elite defense, gave up 52 the week before in Knoxville. I was there. We all saw it. Okay. And with 1 second left, had a shutout. And I'm telling you, as a competitor, that makes you madder than a wet hen to give up the shutout. Use a little Maplesville. You know what I'm talking about. Wet hen, they don't like that. Or cats in the water. The cats don't like swimming. But I look at that game. I got to give Alabama credit. They dismantled the air raid offense. And we hear so much about how prolific it is with 3 and 4 yard short passes. They may throw 50 to 60 times a game. That we'll look back on that. That's as impressive a win, I think, as Arkansas's win over a 4-game winning streak South Carolina team in game 2 of the season.
Yeah, when you look at Alabama, the biggest question mark was how are they going to respond from what happened against Tennessee? And you really couldn't have drawn it up any better. There were some inconsistencies at times. They did struggle to run the ball, but when you have Bryce Young as your quarterback and he has 11 or 12 seconds in the pocket to make a play, I mean, it's not much you can really do. Offensively for Mississippi State, you knew they were going to be at a disadvantage with the air raid and how they wanted to play, but offensively they showed no identity. They didn't show much fight until really that last drive of, we just need to not get shut out. And it was a bad matchup across the board, but you did get a chance to see Eli Ricks at corner for Alabama. He ends up having his first start, a guy that really he really shut down one side of the field and gave up one catch. And outside of that, he was really, really locked down. And I mean, it's just a bad matchup for Mississippi State. The air raid wasn't going to be able to work when it comes down to the Jimmies and Joes that they have as far as the talent-wise when it comes to Alabama. And they were itching to prove something at homecoming and also get that bad taste of Tennessee out of their mouth.
Yeah. Looking at Auburn and Arkansas coming up 11 a.m. When you start losing, remember as a kid, you put your kids or you had to go into timeout. 11 a.m., that's brutal on the fans, okay? You don't know whether to eat breakfast or lunch or start drinking or not start drinking. And you get to the game, you're just kind of in a haze, in a fog. And the visiting team, they come in, jump on top 14-0. All those fans that get there late might not even show up. That's the danger of the 11 o'clock game. You got to get ready for that. Your body's performing differently. Maybe you go to bed early and you practice in the mornings. You do whatever you got to do to get ready. What's going to happen in this game with Arkansas? They can run the ball. Auburn can't stop the run. What do you think will happen?
Yeah, and that's kind of really how the game is going to go to me. I don't think it's hard to be optimistic for Auburn at this point because you haven't really shown us any reason for us to be optimistic for you. Granted, you had a great half against Ole Miss, but I talked about this morning. The matchup just plays right into Arkansas's favor. If you want this to be a dogfight, if you want this to be a street fight, this runs right exactly what Sam Pittman wants this Arkansas offense to be. KJ Jefferson is really starting to come into his own. You had that unfortunate loss with Texas A&M, come up short against Alabama. But when you look at how Arkansas is designed, they want to make it a ground and pound, and something that Auburn has struggled with and really has shown no signs of stopping. I think Arkansas runs away with it. I'm not sold on Auburn's offense to be able to just match up when you're going to be if you find yourself down 14-0 or 14-3, it's going to be difficult to consistently put drives together against an Arkansas defense where offensively they can play keep away. They can hold the clock and bleed the clock out because you haven't stopped them running the ball. But I just think Arkansas is a little too much and the matchup just isn't favorable for Auburn going. I understand a lot happens in Jordan-Hare, but I'm not really sold on what Auburn will be able to do to stop Arkansas consistently.
Well, as our friend Doug Dean of the AU Dose said on the show yesterday, day 679, Auburn football held hostage. Brian Harsin, but Jimmy Hodge, who's normally on here with me, but he's in transit from Knoxville back to Chicago this morning. As he said, only 31 days left, and that's the last game on Auburn's schedule and a change likely to be made. But the climate down there in Auburn, the climate in Tuscaloosa and over in Athens and all. They were talking all about, hey, we're out recruiting the state. We're all over the South. Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, these guys, Brian Kelly, they're recruiting while they're sleeping, man. Go tell us something. That was not that was kind of like, your kid brushes his teeth and makes his bed. Okay, so what now?
Yeah, and when it comes down to what's going on in Auburn, it is unfortunate. It really is, because I feel on both ends of the spectrum, I do understand where Coach Harsin is probably getting frustrated of every single press conference, every single week, that I got to pretty much fight for my job, fight for my security. And also when you go out and put up the product that you have every Saturday, it warrants that. It warrants that. So it's kind of similar both ways. So I can see why people get frustrated. But the thing is, I'm a big believer of be where your feet are. Right now, he is the Auburn head coach. He is for now. So the biggest thing is for him to finish strong. Even if they are going to decide to pull the plug, he can't think about that because he doesn't know what the future holds. All he can do is continually build this program to where it needs to be. Has he done it the best of ways? In my opinion, no. Yeah. But I do think as a responsibility as the head coach, you are held at the standard when it comes down to it. And when you look at the performance that it comes down to, they can blame the players. They can point at a lot of things when it comes to the players, but it's always going to fall back on the head coach.
I agree. Absolutely. One more. We got a few more minutes left with you. Damian Mitchell, Jocks 94.5 in Birmingham, 6 to 7 a.m. every Monday through Friday morning. Catch his show. Put the Jocks app on your phone. It's free. I've got it on my phone. Even my dad and Jethro Bodine can do it. So let's go up to Neyland. Everybody talking about Tennessee, Georgia, between the hedges next Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, Florida. You better, if you're Tennessee, you better be ready for Kentucky, because this is exactly the kind of game that can blow your whole dream season up if you're not ready, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And for me, the way I look at Tennessee is at this point, they're handling what they're supposed to.
Yes.
The biggest question mark, even last week against Tennessee Martin, you're not going to learn much from the Tennessee Martin week, but the biggest thing is, do they go out and do what they need to do from the jump? And that's kind of how I feel about Tennessee right now. I was high on Tennessee coming into the season. I was excited to really see him perform because of Hendon Hooker, because of how this offense operates. They find ways to really, really put defenses in binds. Defensively, they do have some struggles. The rush defense is amazing. When you look at some of the numbers, they're ranked in some of the higher percentile when it comes to rush defense. Pass defense, it's not so good. I think they're ranked 130 out of 131. So when you look at Tennessee, you're going to have to outscore them. And I'm not sold on Kentucky's offense to just line up and say, hey, we're going to be able to run the ball down your throat. And I don't believe that Will Levis is going to be able to match up. Now, granted, last year, 45-42 in Lexington, a different Tennessee team than it was last year. Last year, they were just trying to figure it out. But this year, I think they're more organized, and now they're going to make those plays. And looking for Florida and Georgia, I mean, for a rivalry game to see a 22-point spread, it's kind of crazy. And to me, Georgia still hasn't put their complete game together. I think Auburn was Auburn's second half was probably their most the best they've looked, but they still haven't put a full 4 quarters together. But that's definitely going to be a matchup next week in Athens. But both of these teams really need to make sure they buckle down, handle their business, and then anticipate what's going on next week.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing I'd be worried about if I'm Tennessee, and I know their run defense, the stats are really good for Tennessee. It's because people like throwing on them because they can't stop the pass. But, you know, if you get a good pass rush, you can change everything. So that'll be fun to watch. But you're right. You're not going to get into a boat race, a track meet with Tennessee and beat this group of guys. And consider where they were 2 years ago. It's one of the more remarkable stories in college football. Hey, before I let you sign up, say this. We most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help people with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Give to give. Don't give to get. Damian Mitchell, let people know how they can follow you. Love having you on. Already looking forward to our next visit.
Oh yeah, man. If you're on Twitter at RunDM and the number 6 at RunDM6, I'm pretty active there. On Instagram, Damian.Mitchell6 there. So I mean, you listen to me every day from 6 to 10 on Jocks 945. You'll hear my commercials. You hear me on from 6 to 7 in the morning Jocks, 7 to 10 a.m. with Macaron Kubelik in the morning, and just variety shows there on Jocks 94.5 down here in old Birmingham, Alabama.
Wait, so you're now, and I noticed, so you're down with Mac and Cube 7 to 10 as well. So this is great. By the way, I'm not trying to get you another job, but if anything changes at Auburn, could you imagine a guy like you in charge of high school recruiting, relations, and whatever? Wow. I mean, I'm just throwing that out. Food for thought, people. His name.
You never know. I'm 26 years old. There's no telling.
He's Damian Mitchell. And he's from Maplesville, Alabama, and he knows Tommy Agee, and we love having him on here. Great show, everybody. See you tomorrow. Thanks for listening.